Hi there, this will be a quick guide on how to connect Next.js with MongoDB. If you like this content, ensure you subscribe and like. We'll start by creating our project folder. I'll just navigate to my desktop and create right click and create a new folder, and I'm going to name it data. You can choose whatever name you want, and then I'm going to drop this folder inside my Visual Studio Code. Therefore, I'll just come here and push this Visual Studio aside so that the folder can be visible, and then I'm just going to drop it inside the Visual Studio. Great. If you have done that successfully, then you have created a project or a folder that we're going to use for our project. Okay, the next thing you need to do is just to install Next.js. I'll come here. You can drag and drop this line here. Alternatively, you can come on this three dots here and then click terminal, new terminal. We'll be using TypeScript and Next.js. If you don't know how to install Next.js, it's pretty easy. You can search in Google for Next.js documentation and then click on installation. Okay, you just need Node.js version 18.18 or greater. And then you can just copy this command inside your terminal. I'll click copy, then come here inside the terminal and then paste it. And then you want to have a dot at the end. This dot will ensure that the project is created inside our data folder. Then you can press enter. And then you can proceed. Do you want to use TypeScript? Then press yes. Just accept everything. Okay, when you get this message, that means the project has been created successfully. Then you can just move inside here, the app, then go to page.tsx. This is your home page. It has a lot of code. This is just an example code, and I'm going to delete it. Just come here and collapse this div here, and then delete this div. And I'm going to create a new div, and I'm just going to type homepage. At the moment, we do not have an image, therefore I'm also going to delete this line. Okay, let's come to the layout. Click on this layout, and I'm going to delete all these fonts. I do not need any fonts in my project, so I'll just delete this. Also delete this line. And finally, on this on the body part, delete this line. Great. Now that we have set up that, we can run our project. On the terminal, just type npm run dev, then press enter. Great, and you can see that our server is running on localhost 3000. You can just click it, or you can just copy the URL, then go inside your browser, and then paste it on top, then press enter. Great, and you can see this message homepage. I've just zoomed it so that it can be more clear. We'll be using MongoDB for our database. Therefore, let us go to the browser and install MongoDB. If you come inside your browser, you can search for MongoDB, then click on its homepage. You can click here. If you don't have an account, you can register. But if you have an account, you can click here on sign in. Then you can enter your email address, or you can sign up using Google or GitHub. After successful login, you can come here and you will see all your previous projects. But if you have not created any project, then it's going to be empty. Just click here on new project. And then you can name your project. I'm going to name mine just data. And then inside the key, you can provide any key. I'll provide application, and the value can be root. And then click on next. Then click on create project. Then click on create cluster. Now you have to choose between these ones, but I suggest you choose the free one since it's for testing purposes. And then the name of your cluster is cluster 0. You can change this name, but once you change it, you cannot change it again. And then you can choose your closest location. For me, it's Cape Town, South Africa. That is my closest location. And then you can click on create deployment. Great. After that, you have your username and your password. You can just click here, create database. And then the next thing, click on choose a connection method. And then select drivers. Great. After that, you'll be provided by this URL. And this one is a secret URL. You're not supposed to share it. Therefore, click on copy this URL. But one thing you can notice that this is my email address and this is the password that we had just seen earlier. So if you do not have this credential, you can just replace it. Okay, just copy the URL and we'll move back to Visual Studio Code. Inside the Visual Studio Code, you just come here, around here, and then right click and then new file, and you're going to name it .env. It's going to be an environment variable file, and inside it, you're going to name our connection string for mongo_URL. And then you can just paste in the URL. Great. Now we have a connection string for MongoDB. We'll use this connection string to connect to MongoDB database. Next, we need to install the MongoDB library. Therefore, click on this plus icon here, and you can just type npm in small letters, npm install mongoose. Then press enter. After successful installation, we need to create another file. Just right click here and then new folder, and you're going to name that folder lib. Inside the lib folder, create a new file and you're going to name it mongodb.ts. This file will be used to connect to MongoDB database. Let us create a function to connect to MongoDB database. First, we'll import mongoose from mongoose. Just write import. Great. Then we'll declare another variable and you're going to name it is connected. So this variable is going to show us whether we are connected to MongoDB or not. And actually it's going to be a Boolean because you can either be connected or not. And the initial state, you're going to pass it as false. Boolean. We're going to declare another function, not another function, but a function. They're going to call it connect to DB. So export constant connect to DB, connect DB, and it's going to be an asynchronous function. So just type async, and you have to provide the type of this function. Therefore, it's going to be, and the type of function is actually a promise. So promise, a void promise. So this function is of type void and it's an arrow function. Inside the arrow function, we're going to check whether it returns a promise. If it returns a promise, that means is connected is going to be true. Therefore, we say if is connected, then we can put a curly braces here and we can console log something. We can console log that connection is successful. Or we can just say MongoDB is connected. Great. And we also want to return. We don't want to proceed any further. Otherwise, we're going to have a try and catch block. Inside the try, we want to try to connect to MongoDB. And we'll say mongoose.connect. And inside it, we're actually going to connect to the URL that we have just created. So MongoDB process.env.mongodb or mongo_URL. So one thing you want to ensure is that the naming of this mongo_URL is the same as, actually it is URL, is the same as the one that you have declared here. So you can check and you can see this one You can even copy, and then you just have to ensure that it's the same. Great. Now, the connection string can be either this one, or if it's not provided, it's going to be an empty string. So you can say or just an empty string. Inside this function mongoose.connect, we can provide another parameter, and another parameter is for the name of the database. So you can just say db name, and then we can just call it data fetching. And it's a string, so ensure it's a string. Next, we have to change the state of is connected. So you can see I have a suggestion here, which is correct. So we are changing the state of is connected, and you're changing it to true. If you want to have this notification, it's actually pretty easy. You can just come here inside extensions, and you can search for tab 9. And then you can install this one. Let me just enlarge it a bit so that you can see. You can install this one. I'm going to actually test this connection using useEffect, and useEffect is a React hook. Therefore, whenever you're using a React hook, we are changing from server component. You have to include here that it is a client component. Therefore, you can just come here under this function, and then let me collapse this a bit. Great. Then we are going to use useEffect. So therefore, useEffect. And inside useEffect, we're going to have an arrow function. And we're not going to have any dependencies. Therefore, we can just pass an empty array at the end. Great. This comma should be at the end. Then inside the useEffect, we're going to declare another variable, and we're going to call it fetch data. Therefore, constant fetch data. And it's going to be an asynchronous function, which is still an arrow function. Inside the arrow function, we're going to have a try and catch. So we're going to have try and catch. You can select try and catch. Inside the try, we're going to test the connection. Therefore, we're going to say await connect to DB. Connect to DB. You can see we have this suggestion here, which is correct. Connect to DB. Great. Nice. You can see we have, I'm missing an N here. So ensure you have that N. It has automatically imported connect to DB. And it has also automatically imported useEffect, which is great. Therefore, we're just trying to connect to DB using this function that you had declared earlier. And we can also console log. If we have a connection, we can just console log connection success. Just connection or connected to MongoDB. Great. Otherwise, we can just console the error. So inside the catch block, we can console.error. You can either use console.error or console.log error. Great. And we can just test this function inside. Before we test the function, we need to call this function. That's why you see this its color. It's not a deep yellow. So if you see a fade in color, that means that function is not used. Okay, and we are seeing the same error here. So fetch data is declared but never used. So we need to call this function, and we can actually call it here. Can call fetch data. Great. Then we can save and just move directly to our web browser. When we open our web browser and we can actually, this is our home page, and we are going to see whether we have a console.log, and that console tells us that we are connected to MongoDB. Therefore, you can just come here on these three dots here, then right click, and then check for developer tools. Click on more tools, then developer tools, and you can see it's connected to MongoDB. I think I misspelled something here. It's not conned. It should be connected to MongoDB, or yeah, this one connected. It should be connected. Yeah, connected to MongoDB. Now we can check again, and you can see it's connected to MongoDB. That one has been for testing, but we'll not test it here inside our home page. And this is how you test. Wherever you are using React hooks, ensure that you have used this, you have declared your function as use client.